So at the moment, I've got it doesn't look too great of a hover state here. Maybe what I want to do is when I hover, I make this text a little bit wider. So how do I go about doing that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start messing with the fonts a little bit now. So instead of this header and hover, I've got this font size and this pink color, I'm just going to remove it for now. What I want to do instead is start stretching and maybe skewing the font and making it a little bit weirder. So something that isn't in these kind of normal font files, I want to change this a little bit more. So how do I do this? So I'm going to do this on the default for now. I'm just going to remove this transition. We'll add that in a little bit later. So I just want to see it as a default version so I can click back and forth between the two. First thing I'm going to do is add in a new thing called transform. Now transform is just moving this and changing this and rotating this. So what I can add in here is quite a few things, maybe a rotation, some kind of scale, some kind of skew. For instance, if I want to kind of tip this over a little bit more, I can do translate so I can move it around the page. There's actually quite a few things I can do in here. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is actually scale this. So I'm just going to write in scale and then in brackets, I'm going to add in 1.5 and then a close brackets. So this basically makes this tag 1.5 times as big as it was previously. Now, obviously what we could do here is just increase the font size. As you can see here, it's a little bit bigger. Now, what I actually want to do is almost like stretch this instead. I want to stretch this across the page. So I can actually add two numbers in here instead. So I've got 1.5 across, but up and down, I just want it the same as normal. So I can add in a comma here for 1. So what this will do is it will stretch this across the page by 50%. As you can see here, it now looks a little bit longer. It's actually messing around with the page. But what we can see as well is this doesn't line up anymore. How come? Well, this is stretching from the midpoint of where it would usually be. Now I want the midpoint of this to be in this top left corner though. So I want to stretch not from the middle, but this top corner. So it goes in the right place, but across this page instead. So what do I need to do? There's one more thing I can add in here underneath, which is called the transform-origin. Where do I want this to scale from and stretch from? Well, I want this to be in the top left corner, so it's 0, 0 space 0. So now this will still sit in this right top left position, so in the correct position up there, but it will now stretch across the page instead. Now, of course, what I can do is do this on hover instead. So I could move this in down here. So I'm just going to take these two things, I'm going to copy that and paste it in here. And instead, this is going to be just 1, the default, 1 across, 1 down, 100% each way. So now if I go back, this will stretch it across. Maybe what I want to do is add a transition. So let's add one more thing. So underneath here, I'm going to add a transition. Got lots of trans and transform origin, transition, lots of those in here. So what do I want to change? Well, the thing that's changing is this transform. How much do I want to change it over? 2 seconds again, 2s. So let's see this in action. So if I hover here now, we'll get this kind of stretch effect. Now I could make this quicker just by changing the amount of time, and what I've got in here is something pretty fun pretty quickly. So what we want to do next is almost add this kind of hover state, but by default. What happens if I'm on a mobile? This will never happen. So maybe what I want to do is add some kind of animation in instead.